Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Conversation Capital with myself, Ursula Mariani, your host. What's Mariani? What was it? Ursula Mariani, your host, and the voice of reason. Obonga Bueta. Unjani sis?
Ngiyaphila sisi njani?
Ngiyaphila nami. Yazi abantu basicabanga ukuthi siyazi isiZulu kuphela. Ngaleso sikhathi sikhuluma isiSotho, sikhuluma
Chichewa.
Are you speaking? Now you're talking.
Is it Chichewa or is it Chewa?
Chichewa, but Chewa would be like the short.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, is it not the same as Zulu
Sotho,
and
Sotho.
isiZulu?
Yeah,
It's
he's
the
right.
same.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You're saying the
Sotho,
same thing.
Yes, yeah. So you'd be like, oh, Nguyankula Chichewa or Nguyankula Chewa. But yeah, Chewa
It
would be more the
doesn't sound
tribe.
right.
Yeah, Chichewa,
Yeah.
Anyway, I hate it when we do this to the poor guest. The poor guest is sitting here like,
Okay.
Ningena, Pingama languages when. Swangile Masimula. Hello.
Hi, Asha.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
We're so happy
Or should
to
I say
have you.
ngiyaphila?
You know, when I get into the vibe, girl, you
Yes.
see what we're doing here. So we've invited Zwangile in. One of the conversations that did very well last year, and we just want to expand on it, was when we had the other Zwangile.
Actually, yeah.
Come in and talk about her son with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, right? I've got the name right.
Yes.
Which is the condition her child had, and so many mothers related to it.
Yes.
And it was, double-fold because her child also has autism. And we just wanted to expand on the conversation. And so we brought in Swangile to come through and have a chat about that. And so that's what we're going to be delving into today. So I know that I always leave guests stuttering when I say, tell us about yourself.
Yes.
So just two sentences. Who's Swangile?
Loud.
Aha.
I'll say that.
Okay.
I am a mom of two beautiful kids. A 9-year-old Busisiwe, and she's the one who has autism, but also she's also diagnosed with global development delays. And then I've got a little one, Nkosana, and he is 4. Busi is the spicy one, and Nkosana is the calm, the adventurous one, right? I grew up in Orange Farm. I'm a township girl, in and out. And I'm just a lover of life, a lover of conversations, shifting the narrative, specifically as someone who grew up in the township, you know. I'm taking my own experiences and I'm like, guys, actually, let me shine light into something that growing up in the township, we were not exposed to, you know. So that's who I am. And when I am not a mom, I'm an HR professional. So that's who I am.
Sure.
Yes.
Good podcast, Yamavali.
Yes.
18, MON 18. I didn't know that you were from the Val. That's so nice.
Yes.
It's absolutely amazing. So one of the things I asked you off camera, and it really is jumping into the deep end of the conversation right at the beginning, but I find it a really interesting part of you. I know many moms, not many, I know a few moms who have children with autism, and usually if the first child is autistic, they don't go for the second one. And as soon as you said you went on to have another, I realized, okay, there's something to double click on here, because most parents feel this is a lot already. So maybe let's start there. Let's start at, why is it not a lot for you? So much so that it was discouraging. Before we step into the general questions of walk us through the journey, how did you find out this and that? Let's start there.
So my journey into becoming, right? Becoming in terms of parenthood didn't only start with the Busisiwe. It started when first child with my husband, we had a stillborn at 8 months. She weighed more than 2 kilograms. And the hospital told us that, actually, guys, you need to have a funeral at home. And imagine you're the first in the family who's losing their child. You have to have a funeral, you know. And I think in most cases, when you're going through the journey of becoming, you are always referencing what you know. And the reason why I say that is because you look at the people that you might have grown up with, who might have had kids prior. You look at your mom, you take advice from older people within your family, females, in terms of telling you in terms of what a normal pregnancy should look like.
Yeah.
So I did not know that something was wrong with our baby up until I was fully dilated, started having cramps, and then was rushed to the hospital. So we had the funeral, and that was our first introduction into parenting. Fast forward, we're like, oh, actually, let's try again, right? And I think it was brave of us. It was brave of us, but I always believe in that thing that my mom would always say that uNkulunkulu akakuphi umthwalo okusindayo, you know. And they would always say like indlovu ithwala umbogo wayo, you know, like something like that. And for me, it was about, okay, let me go through the journey of understanding my grief, but at the same time having that understanding that it can be possible. I saw with my first pregnancy that I got to 8 months, so I can get pregnant. So then we had Busi, and then Busi had complications. She was born at 27 weeks of pregnancy. She weighed 825 grams, which is less than a kilo. And she stayed in hospital for about 4 months. But when Busi was rushed into NICU, I remember with our first child, Unontlantla, where they had told us that there's no heartbeat, you need to give birth naturally and things like that. I remember once she was out, I was holding her, they gave us like an hour. And I was like, God, if you could just allow me a season where, if it means that I have to come to hospital every single day, I am willing to do that. Little did I know that with Busi, I was actually going to live the testimony, you know. So when Busi was diagnosed, for me, it was a matter of saying, oh, maybe I asked for this, you know. And now, not in a bad way,
yes,
but in a way of saying that it's like I spoke life to it with my first child. And now with Busi, I can't just give up, you know, because it's like God saying, I'm giving you a second chance. But remember when you had asked for that first chance with your first child, I didn't give you that opportunity. Here's now an opportunity for you to actually do what you said you would do. And Usha, did it with wholeheartedly, you know. I focused, literally would go to hospital every single day. And when Busi started growing up, I think she was about 4, going to 5, when my husband and I were like, oh, actually, let's try for another child, you know. And how that conversation started was that my mom was like, Busi can't be the only child because, one, she's been diagnosed, because she was diagnosed at 1 year, 6 months. Should anything happen to you guys, who would actually take care of Busi? And I think having to see what we've seen in most Black communities in terms of a child growing up with disabilities and the care that they don't get is because people were not exposed from a young age. So for me, it was about having this second child who will actually grow up in seeing how my parents are actually taking care of my sister, having to understand from a young age in terms of my sister is nonverbal, what does it mean? How do I actually communicate with her? So for me, it was more of also just giving Busi a chance at being a normal child, you know. And for me, there's nothing as normal.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
I feel for her, looking at their relationship now, the small conversations that they would have, you know, when Kosana would just come in the room and say, Ma, Sisi's asking for like ice cream, and I'll be like, but Sisi she doesn't know how to talk. And he'll be the first to remind us that, Ma, Sisi can talk, she said it to me, you know. So it's in those small moments where I'm like, oh, okay, it was actually a good decision in terms of having Kosana. And I always believe that any parenting journey with each and every child is completely different. And although I was very scared with Nkosana, I did not want it to reflect it on my journey with my first child and with Busi. For me, it was another chance to try again. And I went ahead.
That's amazing. And even as you're explaining the relationship of Nkosana and Sisi, can I call her Sisi as well?
Yes.
I'm an insider now. You know, it like, I think of me and my brother. We'll be in a room, people will be talking, one glance, just at lips, and we both know full sentence what is being said, what one is thinking, you know. That's what it is to grow up with a sibling.
Yes.
You know, to grow up with a sibling, and especially when you guys are close age, under 5 years, you guys get each other in a way that nobody will ever get you, you know. And it's a gift. And I always say a sibling is the best gift a parent can give their kid, right? There's some siblings, but sibling rivalry. Like when you said sibling rivalry because of the podcast, we see you guys. Sibling rivalry that are like, no, you know, that's not.
It's not the story for everyone.
It's not the story for everyone, but for many people, it is a story. It's the greatest gift you could have given Busi and Nkosana. You know, there's an unspoken connection there that is absolutely amazing. And so, thank you for being courageous to try again. When you said that, I said I need to ask this because I don't think that's an easy journey to go through. You start off with a stillborn. For me, there's a different weight. I've never fallen pregnant, so I actually don't know. But I always imagine that there's a different weight. Losing a child at 3 months, losing a child at second trimester, losing a child in the third trimester, and then a whole stillborn that you give birth to.
8 months
There's a
later,
different weight that is carried in some of these things. I think somebody else could say no, it hurts just as much.
It's all the same.
Yeah. And so, going through that experience first, and then having an autistic kid, and then still trying again takes a lot of courage. And so. Yeah, wow, that's amazing. So let's start off with how does Busi get diagnosed? What happened?
So
what did you start noticing?
Like any other journey of having a premature child, the hospital and parents will tell you that no, she'll catch up, with her peers. Yes, well, I'm a premature, they slow in this, they slow in that, So that was the approach for the first 1 year, 6 months of her life. And just saying that she will catch up. So at 1 year, 6 months, get a call. She was at home with her grandmother that they're suspecting that she had a seizure. But they don't know it was a seizure at that time. They were like, temperature was high, she started shaking, and I was like, okay, I'm coming. Rushed her to hospital. And they did an MRI scan. Obviously, because she was a premature baby, already it was like anything that will happen, they'll just take it serious.
Yes.
So they did an MRI scan, and then they found out that she's got brain damage. Initially, her diagnosis was cerebral palsy, in terms of the impact in terms of her brain, right, and the damage. And the doctor was like...
How old is she at this point?
1 year, 6 months. So that's about, 18 months?
Okay.
Yes, so about 18 months.
So for the first 18 months, she was normal?
So she was normal, you know? And I think, like I'm saying,
that for the lack of a better word.
I paused.
Yes, and I think it was that, okay, like a normal baby, if she has to start walking at like what? Let's say 10 months, maybe. I would know that she wouldn't do it. Typically... a neurotypical baby would actually do it
that's
at
the
10
word.
months, right?
Yeah.
But with Busi, because she's a premature baby, I'm expecting it maybe 2 months later.
Yeah.
Not exactly at 10 months, right? So for me, I didn't think of it as that there's something wrong or something to panic about up until she had that seizure. So when they diagnosed her, I remember the doctor had said, she might not be able to walk. She might not be able to talk. There's a lot of things that she might not be able to do, but they actually grow up, these kids, So he was referencing a lot of things. And in that conversation, I then said to him, I'm leaving here with the word might, meaning that you yourself, you're not sure, right? You're actually basing it on it's either medical history or your experiences with other kids. But basically, based on what you're telling me, that even if I start therapy at an early age, there's a possibility of hope and a lot of things that they can actually change, right? So that's how she was diagnosed. And might has always been the word that has helped me through this entire journey. And we started therapy literally the next following month till today.
Sure.
Yes.
And then, is she able to walk?
So now she's a 9-year-old. She runs.
Oh, wow.
Yes, she started walking. So she started walking when she was 4 years, 5 months.
Okay.
That's when she started walking. She did use a walker at one of her schools that she attended, a special needs schools. The walker, it's like steel. and like they put her in, and then there's a waist belt around her, so she was using that. She didn't have good balance at first, but now she walks, she runs, she climbs up slides. She's a big fan of a swing. She jumps on the trampoline, but she's nonverbal. She's nonverbal, and she's also not aware in terms of like her surrounding when it comes to safety. So obviously she would see that maybe there's like trees outside and things like that, but she can just actually like run into the street, not being aware that there's a car that might come and things like that.
Sure.
And how have you navigated this, or maybe you haven't, this, as parents, we want to push kids, you know? So how have you relinquished that control to say, Busi, I'm going to put you in the perfect circumstances as far as possible to get you to maybe walk, to get you to maybe be aware of your environment, but I'm not going to push you. How do you navigate that? Or do you push her maybe?
So there is one of her therapists, there's a book that they gave us. It's just that I don't remember the title. But the book was always referring in terms of us as parents being at Busi's level. We always need to be at her level, right? No matter how much therapy we might give her, like you're saying, Sponga, and all those opportunities, but we need to be at her level. So if at that time, at her level, her brain is actually creating, for example, connections in terms of walking and she doesn't have balance, we shouldn't push her to actually then run. You focus on her trying to take those few steps, even though she doesn't have balance, but you allow her to be, you know. Like even now, she's not potty trained. She's still using nappies. And for us, it's about when you're ready, you know. When you're ready, a small thing where if she might need to be changed, she will come and just hold her father's hand. And then when her father's like looking at her, she will just walk to the bathroom, you know. So for us, it's like we're getting there, like little by little. But I think for me, for most parents, is be at the level where your child is, and allow for your child to thrive at that specific season or goal or even milestone, you know. Let it not we push. And I think another thing what we do as parents, Ursula, is that we always compare our journeys to the next parent, or we always compare our kids, because even neurotypical kids, they don't grow up in the same way.
Nope.
They don't achieve their milestones in the same way, right? Or at the same stage. So it's just about allowing your child to actually bloom and blossom at their own pace, and never push them. And I think the reason why I also haven't pushed her a lot, Sibonga, is that she can't verbalize it to me to say, no, ma, but this now it's too much. You know? So, because Nkosana will tell you, Nkosana will tell you like in a split of a second to say, no, mommy, I don't want, you know, but Busi actually can't. So it's just a matter of saying, let me just be at her level, and allow her to take things one day at a time.
I like the lesson around equipping yourself with knowledge when you talk about reading it in a book.
Yes.
I think that's one of, for me, like the greatest lessons one can learn. That I always say there are certain challenges that if you don't equip yourself with knowledge, you'll think you're the first and only person to have gone through this. But when you allow yourself to indulge in literature and you allow yourself to, you learn, other people were fitile and this is what they did and this is the learning curve. So thanks for that reminder, you know. And then if you could tell us around schooling, I hear you speaking a lot of schooling, therapy. It's a tough question.
Lot.
I want to speak to costing of these things. It must be really difficult.
Yes.
You know, I can only imagine the added layer of a challenge that is the costing of these things. You know, how are you guys navigating that and that frustration?
I think it's always about making that sacrifice. And I'll just allude in terms of, like you were saying, the knowledge that as parents we empower ourselves with, right? Being someone who grew up in the township, you actually realize that special needs schools were not a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And it was always linked in terms of that word when people would say "Skolo sa matakalan," for example. It was never given an opportunity of saying people in those schools can actually thrive, right? So hence for me as a parent, it was about I need to go out there and get as much information I can as possible. And we're not coping financially, but I think it's just a sacrifice that we have made as parents. And because another thing within our system, there is a huge gap in terms of kids being placed in the right schools.
Yes.
And you always find that kids, I'll just give an example. There was a child that we grew up with in our street, and he was epileptic, right? Everything else was functioning. It's just that he was epileptic. And at grade 7, he in the playground had a seizure, and then he fell. And then the teachers were like, you know what, we can't take care of this child anymore. And that was the last year he went to school, in grade 7. And to this day, the guy is 36. He has never been to matric. He doesn't know the doors of high school. And that's what I saw growing up, you know. So when I had my child, it was that I needed to do different. I needed to show people a parenting journey that is different from what we saw and give them reference that it's possible, you know. Yes, the thing is, where I'm taking Busi now in terms of her school, the previous schools, you're looking at like private care in terms of special needs schools. But there are parents out there who don't have that luxury. They're actually looking at getting assistance from government for those schools. But you find that even within those schools, we don't have the right admin processes to actually place our kids and give the right support. So it is.
What do you mean by that?
Pardon?
What do you mean by that?
So
you're saying within the government systems,
yes.
we don't have the right admin.
Yes. So you will find that, for example, let's say in a public school, and when they label as a slow learner, they're just going to continue with teaching him in a typical way for like fast learning kids and not actually focusing on what this child needs. Then you find that when they are actually at a point of being like, no, this child shouldn't be at the school, like at a mainstream school, they need to go at a different school. Then they will just say to the parent, referring you maybe to go and speak to a social worker. I know there was a parent recently I was speaking with on social media where she was saying that her child was taken out of school. The child is 11. And then that they needed to get a psychologist in a way to diagnose the child, which comes at a cost, right? Because within our government facilities, there might be like a waiting list. But she's saying, I'm at home with this child. What am I supposed to do? You know? And I feel it's unfair that as parents, she then needs to go and seek private services. So those are the kind of conversations, or when I say like gaps, that we need to actually have. You know?
There's a lot of learners or kids who get lost in the system. They really do get lost. Or like you said, a person is epileptic, that can be controlled. You don't have to be removed. Or maybe certain, accommodations can be made, right?
Them,
but you find that there's a bundling and there's push over. Okay, you're no longer our problem now, to the next service, you know. And it goes beyond, of course, it has to do with schools being over capacity. There aren't particular, professionals dedicated to those type of cases in our public schools. Otole, I think it's called, it's a combined school or some, I can't remember, but it's a public school. But you find that there's not enough admin. So I have to be a teacher, and then I have to make sure the child is referred as well. And it's not an easy process as well. It's frustrating for teachers as well. So there's layers to it. But Spongile is absolutely right by saying there's a lot of kids who get lost in the system and just end up, like the case you referred to, staying at home up until a really old age, despite the fact that they could have the capabilities or capacity, you know?
And I also think, Spongile, it's also the gap in where our teachers also need to be equipped, right? Because you might find that the teaching programs, maybe they don't include an aspect of having to be able to identify these a child how can I put it? Like their difficulties at a very young age and calling it out, right? It's always, oh no, we've you know, it's like a naughty child syndrome, and sometimes it's just not a naughty child, you know, it's just a child who needs to be seen. And in our public systems and schools, it's always the teacher who needs to be the first person to say it, right? Because you able to identify in terms of, is this child able to, for example, read, you know, intake the information.
Sure. And I like what you're saying, but it also reminds us of sometimes the weight that some of these jobs carry that we underestimate, like being a teacher. And is it that, because I know in where we live in the Val is very big. Close to where home is, there's a school called Krugerland for atypical students. And so I do know that there are schools and institutions that, you know, we don't want to be here like doom and gloom, South Africa is terrible and we don't have, you know, but what are the gaps that you're saying we can do better here? Is it that we need more schools? Is it that we need more child psychologists? Is it that, what would you say are the gaps that you're like, this part is missing from our education system with regards to accommodating atypical students?
Even before I go to our education system, I think as a parent, we need to be acceptive in terms of, even if you see that little thing and you're not sure, go out there and just find out, you know, because yes, like you said, Ursha, teachers can do so much, but as a parent, if you're in denial, you are actually digging a bigger hole for your child, where you will only then, at the time where, let's say your child is 5, they're giving you this diagnosis, you're in denial, maybe it's witchcraft and things like that. Then you find that 4 years down the line, when your child is like 10, only then you're only introducing your child to education, for example, or you're introducing your child in terms of therapy sessions. So for me, as parents, we need to be on the lookout. And no one knows their child better than their parent, you know. If it doesn't feel right or sit right with you, go out there and find the information. That's the first gap that we need to close. The second gap that we need to close is having the correct admin within our systems in terms of placing kids at the right schools, right? Similar to, just give an example with a lot of parents, kids moving from, I think, grade 7, going to grade 8, the online system, all those things are in place. But then when you think about our kids who are looking for special schools, we don't have a system like that in place, right? We're always reliant in terms of getting the right advice from someone at the clinic or getting referrals and things like that. What to do, what are the next steps? Because you find that a lot of parents, kids are being diagnosed. The doctor's giving you a diagnosis at the hospital. Then from there, what then?
Yeah.
I've been told that my child might not be able to walk. I've been told that my child has cerebral palsy. Then what? Then it's done, you know? And hence we have a lot of kids, Ursula, who are sitting at home with their parents because the only thing that the parent knows is that I need to take my child once in a month, for example, for speech therapy, go for physio once in a month. But then outside from that, what else do I do? And at the end of the day, I feel for me, as much as we've got so much public schools, we need to have public schools for kids with special needs. Yes. Because for example, parents are living on a disability grant for kids, and it's like almost like 2,000 rand. There's not a lot that you can actually do with 2,000.
Absolutely.
Taking care of a child who is either on a wheelchair, they're eating with a feeding tube. Just that tube alone costs like 5,000 rand, you know? So I think that's also some of the things that need to be closed as a gap. But I think with our government, it's just sharing more awareness, you know? Kudos to them in terms of the workplace. The workplace is a lot that they're doing in terms of programs, right? And ensuring that employers are actually placing young adults who are living with disabilities in positions and things like that. But I think for me, let's then go back to the foundation. Let's start at that foundation where we take them to the right schools. They get the right physio that they need. And also with therapy currently, and I know that our system, we don't have a lot of therapists who are within the public system. A lot of people are private, you know, and so some of us, we're privileged, you go at medical aid, but like I said, with other parents, they get that one session of speech in a month.
Sure.
They get that 1 session of OT a month. So for me, it's also how can the private sector and government come together to say, actually, guys, we can actually have provide more of our therapists into your system as like pro bono in a way, but just to also just assist the parents, because I feel if I go for that 1 day in a month and I see what they're doing with my child, the chances are of me doing that at home constantly as a routine might be very limitless.
So, I really want to speak to your husband. Supportive husband, supportive father. Somebody else is like, yo, girl, you and I don't have the same struggles. I'm also a mom of an autistic child, but I'm alone in this. Maybe let's chat about that. Yeah.
Every day I count my blessings when I just look at him, because a lot of parents, they don't have that additional support, whether it might be a father raising a child who's living with a disability, or a mom, so I never take it for granted.
Sure.
It's something that I know that, for example, being here today, he's at home taking care of the kids. And I know he's got it covered. I'm able to have moments where I can switch off, which are truly important. But not all of moms actually have that privilege. So it's I think for me, it's important that we also shine light on the dads out there who are actually present, who are like, what, this might be different. This was something that I might have expected as being a father, but I'm going to embrace it, It does come with its challenges, in a sense where I sometimes might feel the burnout or he might feel the burnout, in terms of taking care of Busi. But he's there and I'm truly grateful for that.
Sure.
I'm grateful for that.
Honestly, it is something to be grateful for, and it's just such a pity how it will always seem like assistance, right, instead of an equal role player, right? Even when I asked it, after I asked it, I said the question in itself is problematic and speaks to our mindset as how we see fathers versus mothers, almost as if they've got an option to opt out because they are fathers and mothers do not. So I heard it, but I still asked it, I always reflect on the story when we talk about autism or anything close to it. 2 things. There's a lady that I know who has an autistic child, and she spoke of her experience being in the United States, and a community that understood differently what autism is because of the knowledge. So she had explained that her child would be fixated with numbers, and so with the cashier at a till, he'd want to press, right? And so there was like a thing of no, like, let him press the buttons, and there was a deep understanding of, okay, this child is autistic. And when the child is maybe having a meltdown while she's trying to do grocery shopping, a fellow customer will say, pass me your grocery list while you calm him down. Let me go do your groceries for you, and so that sort of community understanding of what this mom's going through allows people to show up differently in their support, even strangers to show up differently in the kind of support that they offer you. I'll give another example. I was on a flight and I could obviously tell that the kid is autistic and was having a meltdown over something. In fact, already when we were at the airport, you could tell. Neuroatypical, correct wording. Neuroatypical, whether autistic or not, actually, I can't diagnose. Yeah, but definitely neuroatypical. And then we step into the plane, the kid is having a meltdown over something, probably like the ears and the popping or something. But something really frustrates the kids as we're taking off. And so screaming and, and this older woman gets up from the back of the flight, starts walking to the front. Listen here, Auntie is going to hit you now. Auntie, and you can just tell a lot of us younger people, woke people, we're just like, Mamzu, you're doing the wrong thing. You're making it an already difficult situation for these parents even worse. The child is going through a meltdown and they don't need what you're doing. You're introducing a new element to this child's frustration, but she went, and then I think after a good 5 minutes, she understood that she's making the situation worse, and she really was making the child got even more frustrated with what she was doing. And so there's this huge thing around, if we know better, we will do better.
Yes.
If we know better, we can perform better, we can support better. And what are some of the things that you wish more people around you knew? You know, the Ursulas, the Bongas, the strangers, the friends, the family, that would actually make it easier.
So I think the biggest thing that I always advocate for is that not all disabilities are visible.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So everybody grew up in a community, and I think especially in South Africa, where we always think disability, it's a wheelchair. We always think disability is someone who's blind, you know, like it's something that we need to see physically wrong with Ursula to say that that person has a disability. But I think we need to have a mindset shift where we actually understand that other disabilities are neurological, you know, and it's things that you can't see. And similar to what you're speaking about, I've had a lot of instances where I would go with Busi for shopping and doing errands, and she would have a meltdown, you know. I would have appreciated having someone who would be like, oh, let me get your groceries. But I always get people who actually, it's either they would look, they will give stares.
You don't know how to discipline your child.
I don't know how to discipline my child. Some other people, similar to the gogo in the airplane, would come to me and be like, hey, you understand? But I always try to ensure that in those moments, I don't come from a place where I'm angry. But for me, it's always an opportunity to educate. And I'll just say to a person, please know that my child is neurodivergent. When you get home, just read about it. Allow us to have the space. If it means that I have to wait for Busi in the aisle for 5 minutes for her to finish with the meltdown, I would do that. But I know that that person who was staring or who came to actually ask, then I would say, just go and read up. And then, you know, so I think it's sharing the awareness. As much as it's not nice to always explain to people.
Yes, must be exhausting.
It's very exhausting, you know. But I think for me, it's about sharing the awareness, but at the same time, even us as parents speaking about it, you know, because when we share our stories, people are aware. When we share our stories, people understand that not all parenting journeys are neurotypical, you know, that it's a matter of saying that there's a different parenting journey in each and every person. So for me, it's about that. But it's also about giving compassion. Giving compassion and understanding that already I left my house, stressed that we're going to do errands with Busi. I know that she's not going to like it, but I need to teach her. Even if it's going to the store just to get bread and go out, having that routine every weekend, and which is what I do, it's not something that I would want to do every single day, but my child needs it, you know? So, and sometimes you also find where I know, like recently for my birthday, I did a charity drive, where I raised like nappies for moms raising kids living with disabilities in Mamelodi. And a lot of parents were sharing and saying that what they find when they walk at the mall, someone will come to them and say, you know what, I want to take you to a certain sangoma, you know, your child is like this because of you, you know. It's like it's so problematic. So it's those small things which actually leave us as parents in a position where we want to then close out the world for Ubusi. Because the minute I go out, there will be a sponger who will tell me that I'm doing everything wrong as a parent. You know, I need to take my child there and there. So I think for me, it's about let's move away from actually how our parents grew up, you know, and have a mindset which is open, open to learning and open to understanding that a lot of people do things differently. You know,
there are two elements of positivity I want to put a bit of spotlight on. If people want to support you in the initiative that you just spoke about, how do they go about doing that? Let's start
So the initiative, it's called Mama Babutsilo. So it's a mom. She was raising a child living with cerebral palsy. Her son unfortunately passed away, but she continued with the awareness. So she brings like moms together as a support group for moms in Mamelodi. And also we raise awareness on that group in terms of where parents can get schools and things like that. And also just trying to take parents out from keeping the child at home, you know, because even on that day, it was about bring your child, you know, let's just talk as parents. So the foundation is called Mama Babutilo. Another foundation, it's also called Primi Connect. So Primi Connect, it's run by Tasman. So she had a premature baby, and what she's doing, she's creating support groups from the foundation that I was talking about, in terms of saying, when you leave this hospital as a parent, having a child who's preemie, you know, don't always think it's just about a child having to catch up. When you see that something is wrong, go out there and try and get the correct diagnosis. So those are the foundations that people can actually look out for. So they're on Facebook and Instagram. Okay. So Mama Babutilo is on Facebook. Primi Connect, you find it on Facebook and Instagram. Okay, and another platform that I can share that parents can actually go to, it's called Special Kids. I think it's specialkids.co.za. Yeah. There you find a lot of tools in terms of schools, and not just private schools. You also find like public schools, like schools in Soweto, Ekurhuleni, and things like that. You find assistive devices on there as well. Okay. So if a parent, for example, is looking for like a used wheelchair, they can get contact details on there as well. Therapy, they also can get contact details for therapists on there as well. And they've got a lot of articles in terms of things to look out for, what the process to follow in terms of schools. Yes.
So the second question, like I said, I want to shed spotlight on. I know that you go to a church.
Yes.
That allows you to enjoy church. Yes. With your daughter. Yes. You can name the church if you want to. Yes. And also your experience, and then also sharing some of the things that make it a good experience, maybe that other churches can also learn from this episode.
Yes. So when I went back to church this year, it was like a brave decision. I also didn't even think that I'll stumble upon a church that has a sensory room. For me, it was first Sunday. I can't just sit and not do anything. It's been years that I haven't been to church, because every time when I would go to church, especially churches back in the township, it was always those moments where everything was now focused on Busi. You'll find like a profite, you know, so wow. It was so uncomfortable for Busi.
I didn't expect that either.
Me too.
Yes, to a point where I just stopped, you know. I grew up as Zion, for example. It's the first time I'm going to a church. So currently I'm going to Asylum in Brakpan, but I grew up as Zion. And every time when I would go with the Busi, someone would say, Si profit umtwan. When it got uncomfortable for her, I was like, I can't do this anymore. If it means I have to sit at home, then I'll do that. So this first Sunday, I go to Asylum. I just went with Nkosana. I was like, Daddy, please stay with Busi. We're coming back. We're going to church, right? And then the second day, I was like, okay, you know, the second Sunday, Daddy, I'm going to go with both kids. I'm going to sit right at the back with Busi. Go in there. The minute she gets uncomfortable, we're definitely going to go out. So I remember walking in, and then the lady was like, no, there's a Sunday school for kids. And I was like, oh, okay, no, I can take my youngest, but my oldest I can't, because she's neurodivergent. So she might not be able to cope at the Sunday school. And then she was like, no, we've got a sensory room. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like immediately, I didn't attend the church service that day. And I was like, can I please see the sensory room? And literally they took me there. And it's a room that literally has things that Busi would typically use at school. And it's at a church. And I went there, they took me through it. Busi started walking around, playing with balls. And they were like, Mommy, every Sunday you can come here, leave your child and go attend church. You don't have to worry about anything. The people that are here are trained. They've worked with kids like Busi before. And I don't want to lie, I literally cried. Like I literally
Do you know, as you're telling the story, I can see your joy, and I'm feeling your joy with you, right? Did you see, like, you got so excited? Yes. It was as if you were hearing it all over again.
Yes, you know, and literally from that day on, since Jan, we've been going to church every single Sunday. And Busi loves the experience. And Nkosana also, I think...
Asylum, yes, you guys are doing an amazing job.
Please. And even with Nkosana, because as he is growing up, what I've realized, Osha, is that there are always moments where he has to be a sacrifice. And the reason why I'm saying that, we can go to a restaurant, for example. Once Busi has a meltdown, it's done. And he would always be like, Mommy, why do we always leave when Busi has a meltdown? You know? But he would be like, why should we leave? Because Busi is crying. And you will try and explain it to him. And I've started realizing that my child is not able to experience a lot of things.
Growing up very quickly.
He's growing up very quickly because now he needs to understand that, when I'm watching TV, the minute Sissy passes in, goes to the kitchen, I need to quickly run and hold Sissy. No, Sissy, don't go to the stove and things like that, So every Sunday for me, it's also about when I leave Busi in the sensory room, Nkosana can go to his class and literally be a child. He doesn't have to worry about having to go pull Sissy from somewhere where it's not safe, and he's just a child. And I think for me, just having that one church that has created that space, we need more spaces like that. Because how many parents are actually sitting at home and not going to church like every Sunday?
Or even like play areas. I know restaurants
Exactly.
and places are doing a lot to cater for kids, but it's mostly for neurotypical kids. How many spaces we need to be considerate of the different types of people we have.
I've never even thought of what you're saying, but like a restaurant.
Yes,
Imagine if a restaurant could also cater for
like even
Sisi.
like a play area. There was a restaurant that I went to in the East Rand. The first time I went, Busi was on the swing. It was a sunny day. Asked the waiter, "Can you please bring an umbrella?" Right? I was like, "Okay, this is a good spot. It's quiet. I'll come with my kids here." I think a few weeks down the line when I went again, and then the waiter was like, "No, we're not allowed to take umbrellas and put it near the kids while they're swinging." And I was like, "But it's hot, and my child, she's epileptic, so heat can actually trigger her having a seizure, And it became like such a huge argument to say, but if your child is not comfortable here, then they can leave. And we left, did a whole review in terms of like social media to say, guys, if you like a parent raising a neurodivergent child, don't go to this place because they don't understand, right? So to your point, Bonga, we need a lot of those spaces.
Every space.
Where we actually allow for just kids to be themselves, from a safety element, from an element of inclusion as well. It's quite important. Let it not just be at school because the only place where Busi can recognize and be herself currently is at school and home and church. But outside from that, I can't go to just make an example to like any restaurant that has a play area because I always have to be on the lookout, Secondly, some places are very loud also. So you find that it's packed, it's loud. And for our kids who are on the autism spectrum, it's just a lot of sensory overload for them. So it's also quite important to just have spaces that allow for that.
One of my takeouts every time I chat to like a mom with a neuroatypical child is always like the awareness. And it reminds me of this brilliant advert that went around on social media where they show a neurotypical individual, and I don't think just neurotypical, just any abilities, because they try to grab a book and then it's written in Braille. And then they try to do, basically, they say, imagine how difficult it is to live in a world that's not designed for you.
Yes.
So just pointing towards, imagine everything catered for a blind person. Imagine everything catered for somebody who was deaf and dumb. Imagine everything catered for somebody with a wheelchair disability. So try to put yourself in a position where you're living in this world that doesn't cater for you, because it becomes very difficult for us to think like that. This waiter that you're speaking of, think in a way that says, you put yourself in shoes that this world is not catering for you. And I'm asking to bring an umbrella to my daughter. It's not the end of the world.
That's all I'm asking for. And I remember that day, I think we were just like 2 families at the restaurant. And I'm like, just compassion. I think it always speaks to that thing of having compassion, always, like you said, put yourselves in people's shoes.
Yes.
And always know that sometimes even when we ask, always know that it comes from a good place, It's not like we're just being parents where we're making these demands, So always compassion, guys.
Sure.
I think nothing beats that.
Ayivumi babora lebonani. Babora.
Yes.
I'm sorry to say that, Mara Labor. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys.
I want you to tell me what's missing from the conversation. You don't know. You think we've covered every bit?
Yeah, I think we can. Yeah, I think we've covered everything. We've covered schools. I think there's just a lot. we can never say enough when it comes to awareness. We can sit here for 4 hours, Ursula, and we can talk awareness,
different examples.
you know, and the different examples. But I feel if people are not willing to actually shift the narratives in their mindsets, then we can always speak awareness and nothing will be done, you know? And I think that's where it starts. Shift your mindset and look at every situation, not saying that this autistic child is the same as this autistic child. It's not, you know? Always come from having to understand that our experiences are different.
Sure.
I myself, I go out there every single day knowing that, yes, I'm blessed to have my husband who's a supportive father, but every time when I speak to other females, I always come from a place where I'm a mom. I'm not a mom with a supportive husband.
Yes.
I'm just a mom who's raising a child living with a disability, and I'm just here to have a conversation with you.
Sure.
So if you always come from that place, it's always important.
Thank you for your time.
And because you share so well on your Instagram, your journey, please do share your Instagram handle where people can follow you on other platforms. Please do.
So on Facebook, I'm Spongile Alice Masemola, and on Instagram as well, and on TikTok.
Spongile Alice Masemola.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you again. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Thank you for not just, carrying this in silence, but leaving a story and allowing other mothers to also absorb. And not just mothers, like you're saying, we all need to be vested in understanding and learning and better understanding so that we can support properly as a society. Yes. So thank you so much for that. Thank you
guys for having me.
Sure. That was today's episode of the Conversation Capital. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I can't wait to read your comments. For now, though, goodbye and God bless.